So I've had a number of friends and acquaintances who've informally consulted with me regarding their app business ideas. And then I've realized that there are quite a number of things that a lot of people do not understand with regards to app development. My name is Bongani, and I'll be sharing with you 10 things that you need to know and consider when you have an app business idea. So the first thing that we're going to be talking about is the market research. So what does this entail? This includes knowing who you are targeting. All right. Are you targeting truck drivers? Are you targeting single mothers, club goers, gym goers? Are you targeting scholars in grade 12 specifically? You also need to consider the market size. For instance, if you're targeting grade 12, you would know that there are around 1 million grade 12 scholars in a particular country. So how many of those would you be targeting? Are you going to be targeting 10% of those? Are you targeting 1% of that? Remember, you can't be targeting everyone. You need to be as realistic as possible because not everyone would want to use your application. You also need to consider their digital skills. Are they tech savvy enough to use the application without any form of training, or do they need some form of training to use your application? You also need to understand or consider the income sources. Where are they getting money from, and what are their buying behaviors? Secondly, we need to understand the business model, or we need to know your business model. So you need to know what services are you providing and how are you getting that service or product to the customer. What pain is the customer experiencing, and how are you taking that pain away? Most importantly, you need to know how you will be generating revenue from this product or service. And then in software development or applications, people usually use subscriptions, ads, or get sponsors and donors to fund the applications. So you could be allowing users to use your application for free, but get companies who want to advertise in your space at a fee. All right, so that's one way of generating revenue. Thirdly, you need to know the necessary skills to get your application built and up and running. Right, so you need to know who's going to be doing what. For instance, do you need a systems analyst, a designer and developer? Who's going to be taking care of the business development? Who's going to be managing operations? Who's taking care of the marketing and sales, the customer services, etc.? You also need to consider the education background of these people, the skills and experiences. Are you going to be getting freelancers to develop for you, or are you getting a corporate company? So you need to consider that. And then fourthly, you need to consider the project platforms. So which size is most suitable for your application? Are you going to be targeting people who are mainly on their mobile phones, or people who are mainly using their tablets? Are you targeting people who are mainly sitting in offices using the desktop computers? So you need to be sure which sizes and platforms that you're going to be, or your users are going to be using. All right, is the application going to be only on the web, or does it have to be on native platforms as well? Platforms like your Android and iOS, does it need to be downloadable? So you need to consider that. Remember, you can either have an Android application, an iOS application, or a web application, or you could have all three at once. It doesn't matter. It depends on what you think is necessary for your business, and as long as you can pay for it. The fifth thing that we are discussing is the scope. Right, this is how big the project is. Is it a one-page static website, a multiple page static website? Is it a dynamic app with few functionalities, a dynamic app with a lot of functionalities? An example of this would be your social media platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube as well. All right, so you need to consider the features. What are the people that are going to be using the application doing on that particular application? Can they sign up, which is registering their information and creating a profile? Will they be able to add things onto the platform? Are they allowed to update or delete anything? What is the logical flow of the application? Is there any calculations that need to be done? What analysis does it need to generate? Does it need to provide some type of data for the user to be able to make decisions and all of that, right? So we need to consider that as well. Number 6 is the project cost. So the project cost depends on the scope, how big the project is, the platforms it will be on, which is your Android, iOS, or web, or all of them together, and the service provider fees. This usually depends on the quality and the experience and reputation as well. So that is the project cost. Number 7 is, how will you fund the application or the business? You can either do this by bootstrapping, which is injecting back whatever money you've made, but then you can obviously do this up to a certain level. Maybe you have savings that you've put aside for this project. You could get a bank loan, you could get a loan from friends and family, you could get grant, sponsors, and donations. So you need to consider how you will fund this project. Remember, software development is very expensive, so you need to have a plan. And then you also need to consider the success factors, which is number 8. So what will make your application successful? What are some of the things that you need to consider? This would include involving the users, for instance. Have you got skilled resources? Are people that you are hiring to do to develop the application for you skilled in doing this? Do you have a clear business goal and objectives? Have you got a plan? So those are some of the things that you need to consider. Number 9 is the domain and hosting. So the domain is the www.businessname.com or .co.za, depending on what you want it to be. Are you getting a shared server, which is not really applicable for an application? It is usually used for small websites. All right. Are you getting a dedicated server, which is specifically for your application? Are you getting cloud services? You also need to consider the security of the application. How will you, remember, you're going to be working with user data. How are you protecting that data? Is your data going to be encrypted? Have you got all the necessary tools to protect that data? And then number 10 is the maintenance and upgrade. How will you ensure that the application is always up and running? All right. Remember, if you're going to have downtime, it needs to be as minimal as possible. All right. You don't want to frustrate your users. So with regards to the ongoing services, who's going to be doing that for you? Is it the developer? Are you getting someone else to do that for you? Because it needs to be up and running as much as possible. You also need to upgrade the functionality once in a while. For instance, remember Facebook back in the day didn't have a like button, it didn't have a relationship status, it didn't have reactions, it didn't have groups, and so forth. Those are things that are kept added on as time goes. So you need to consider what features will you be adding and how will you be doing that. Imagine Facebook without the like button. All right. Imagine Instagram without the reels and all of the things that are happening currently that it didn't have back then. So those are 10 things that you need to consider when you have an app business idea. This includes the market research, the business model, the necessary skills to get the application done for you, the project platforms or the project platform, the scope, the cost, how will you fund that business, how are you paying for that application of yours, what are the success factors, what is the domain, and how are you going to host, where you're going to be hosting the application, and what is your maintenance and upgrade strategy. So those are 10 things that you need to know and consider when you have an app business idea. So if you've got any questions or comments, please add them below. Until next time.